The calendar says it's May, and that means it's time for another edition of 20 Before 20, our podcast here at 20 Front Street, where simply we spend 20 minutes getting to know an artist before they come to downtown Lake Orion to play 20 Front Street. My name's Kevin Bessert. I'm part of the team here at 20, and this month we are keeping it right here in our home state as we are joined by Michigan singer-songwriter and educator, Mr. Joshua Davis. Joshua, thanks for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us. Like I said, Michigan, you're no stranger to us here at 20 Front Street. You're from the state of Michigan. I was actually doing a little research getting ready for our conversation today, and I read an article that actually mentioned, it said you were a Michigan musical institution, and I thought that was pretty appropriate. And I don't know, now with a career that spans over 20 years and touring pretty much every corner of the state, is that something now at this point in your career that you kind of wear as a sense of pride or take some pride in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been here all my life. I'm definitely like a Great Lakes Basin guy. I've lived, from the UP to Detroit and kind of everywhere in between. And I feel like there is a really incredible music community that's super collaborative. And I just feel really grateful to be a part of it and have played a part in it. And 20 Front Street is another big part of it. I mean, a venue like that where we're celebrating artists in an intimate space is perfect for Michigan folks.
So I do want to break that down a little bit. You mentioned there kind of a little bit of your history with the state and kind of lived in different parts of the state. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, because I did a little research here, but born in Marquette, right? But then spent some of your childhood downstate on the east side of the state as part of your childhood, correct?
Yeah. My folks were back to the Landers in the 70s, and they bought a piece of land like way the hell out in the middle of nowhere, outside of Marquette, in the boonies off the grid. And I was born up there, and then my mom and I came down to Detroit, which is where she was from, when I was really young, and my folks split up. And so I spent most of my childhood, like school year, was in Detroit, and then all of my vacation time was spent in the middle of nowhere in the Upper Peninsula, which is really like a beautiful way to spend a childhood. It was the best of both worlds. I
Yeah.
got to experience the culture of Detroit and the kind of the grit and the reality of it, and the culture of it. And then I got to kind of go away in the summers and the winter breaks and kind of reinvent myself and be out in the middle of nowhere and in the quiet in the woods. Yeah, it was good.
Which is what so many Michiganders do, right? I mean, a lot of people downstate, but then spend summers or kind of head up north
Totally.
in the
Totally.
summer. So really that Michigan lifestyle that so many people experience, but did give you the best of both worlds, which is super cool. And then college, right? Michigan State, is that where you eventually
Yeah. I went to Michigan State. Yep, I met my wife there, and we lived in Lansing for a long time before we moved up north. Yeah.
all right, but now, of course, you do reside up north, up in the Traverse City area, which I want to get to. But talk a little bit about that post college time, because I know Lansing is kind of where you started. Is that where the musical journey kind of started post college? I know
Yeah.
that's where the band was and all that. So was it right post college that kind of where it all started?
It was during college. I mean, I got to Michigan State. I went to Eastern for a year, and then I moved to Michigan State. And I met up with I was playing and solo stuff, and I'd played with a couple different bands, but nothing super serious. And then I got a call from I was living in this big co-op with some people. This is my second year at State, and they said, there's a couple guys I know that they're playing. They've got a band. They're looking for a singer, and I was like, well, I don't sing that much, but I'd play some guitar, and maybe we can meet up. And
Sure.
so I met these guys at my buddy Dominic's house on MAC in Lansing, East Lansing, and we were all going to Michigan State at the time, and we started playing together. And like, it was one of those moments where it's like you find some real fellowship in, like, I don't know. I walked away from that first time playing with those guys and I just felt like this is it.
Yeah.
It was a moment, and so that's how Steppin' in It started, which was my first band that started really touring around a bunch, and yeah, it was in Dominic's really crappy basement on MAC in East Lansing.
Very cool. And from there, I mean, obviously the band was touring around for a while and successful, and then the solo career was kind of birthed out of that.
Yeah, yeah. I started. We were touring a ton. I mean, we were like road dogs. I mean, we were
Yeah.
out there, 200 plus shows a year, and
Wow.
on the road for and then my wife Ann and I had our daughter Talia, um, and I just it's like I can't do this anymore in this way. And so we kept playing, in that band, but then I also started playing solo, and I started producing albums and working on and doing sideman work, and playing guitar and keyboards on other people's albums, and doing a lot of studio work, and so just lots of different income streams so that I could stay closer to home. I
Yeah.
mean, I was still touring more than I should have, for sure. I was away from my family a hell of a lot, and looking back on that, I definitely could have made some different decisions,
Sure. Sure.
but I was, trying the best I could to kind of tie it all together in a way that made sense.
No, that does make sense.
Yeah.
And then what eventually was the push to finally move up north? Was it that history you had with Northern Michigan that led you up there, to finally reside up there? Um,
Yeah, that's a good question. My wife and I were living in Lansing for a long time. We had both gone to Michigan State, and she was a, a psychotherapist, and was kind of in between jobs, and I was kind of like pretty mobile, and we wanted to get out of Lansing after a while, even though I have a real deep love for Lansing. But when we decided, we were like, it's either going to be Chicago, or we're going to move up north, because
yeah.
we had been, you know, Steppin' In It played up there a ton. We would, early on, we would go up and play. Uh, we play in, up in the Traverse City area and around there, and then we'd like camp out during the week in the summer. This is our summer.
Yeah.
We'd
Yeah.
go up, we play, we camp during the week, and then we play some more gigs that following weekend. And it
Weekend.
was
Yeah.
like idyllic. It was
Yeah.
the best. And so, and Anne had come with us, on several occasions, and she really loved it up there too. We had some friends that had moved up to specifically Leelanau County,
Okay.
and so we were just like, well. And then my friend Aaron, who has co-written a bunch of my songs with me early on, especially, he and his then wife Joanna had a place up there that they had just moved out of, and they were looking to rent, and it just kind of like happened. And so we rented their place for a couple of years and decided to move up north.
Very cool. And this is something I'd written down as something I wanted to discuss, but you kind of just
Yeah.
touched on it there. Is those early times when the band was up there and you guys were kind of playing up in the Traverse City area and camping. How different do you see that Northern Michigan music scene now versus then? I mean, over the past 10, 15 years, it seems as though there's more, in that area, up in the Northern Michigan area. Do you see a big difference now versus then?
Yeah, I mean, everything's grown. I still have my roots in it. We've got four kids, and I've got a job, and like, yeah, I don't get out a lot in Traverse City.
Yeah.
We go to this great open mic that my buddy Zach runs, and May Earlywine, who's my wife's best friend,
Sure.
and a good friend of mine. Her daughter Iris and our son Theo go, and they sing at this open mic, and we like back them up. And so we were just there last night, actually.
Very cool.
And so I do little things like that, but I don't get out. I don't get out a ton.
Yeah, and the reason, the main reason I ask, there's so many artists, obviously at 20 Front Street, right? We have all these nationally touring artists that come.
Yes.
Some of the times, often it's their first play in Michigan ever, and
Right.
they ask a lot about the Michigan market, and the one
Yeah.
thing I hear frequently is how they have a desire to do something in Northern Michigan, but they don't know how or where to get started. But
Yeah.
they know
Yeah.
there's a scene, and they just don't know would we be able to
Totally.
pull people, and so it's definitely
It's definitely grown.
and it's an intriguing market for a lot of artists.
Oh, totally.
But they're just not sure exactly where to kind of start in that area.
It's hard. It's hard. And we've got a great, I mean, new venue. The Alluvion
Yep.
is in Traverse City, and this is a really great venue, and the people that run it are awesome. And I mean, it's a lot like, in a lot of ways, it's like 20 Front Street, where it's a very artist centric kind of attitude. I mean, you guys take such good care of people, and I feel like every time I come to 20 Front Street, I'm like, it feels like just a really respectful, really, caring environment for the artist. And it's the same way at the Alluvion. And so that's a great spot. So there's these little spots, and it feels like there's more, there's definitely, I mean, there's definitely a lot more going on than when we started playing in Traverse City. And there's a lot of great musicians up here, but, I kind of like came up musically in Lansing,
Yeah.
and to me, there's like nothing like the Lansing music
Scene.
scene. I mean, it's kind of it's a wild town. It's a very, it's a raw, kind of dirty town. But man, there are some really good people there, and there's some amazing players there, and there's just nothing like it.
Yeah, I've heard that from others. You're not the first
Yeah,
person I've heard that from. So,
yeah,
and I do. You touched on May, and I know at the very beginning we talked about kind of the Michigan institution, and I know
yeah,
May I feel very similarly about. So I do want to plug real quick. I know you guys have a show at Interlochen this summer, I think
yeah,
June 28th, where
yeah.
the two of you are going to be together, which I
Yes.
couldn't recommend more to make sure if you're up in that
Oh,
area
thanks,
to hit
man.
that show. Very cool that
Yeah,
you.
it's almost sold out. We're almost finished with the tickets, so it's yeah, which is great. Yes, yeah.
I saw that, and
Actually,
that's a great bill and super cool that you guys are
yeah,
doing that, which leads me to something I definitely want to talk about here, which is Interlochen. And
yeah.
I know I mentioned at the top of the podcast that you're an educator as well. Talk to me about how that happened. Was teaching always something like when you graduated from Michigan State? Was that always part of the plan, or was that something you kind of fell into?
It was never part of the plan as far as a career goes. It was always something. So I grew up, and my folks always took me to folk festivals. We would go to Hiawatha Music Festival up in Marquette. We always went to Hart Plaza music festivals there in Detroit, and lots of folk music. And part of that scene is this idea of passing the torch, and this idea of the lineage of it, and being a part of the lineage of it, and passing it on, and making sure that it doesn't die. And so that's always been kind of a big piece of my upbringing, and what's really important to me about music and community, and making sure that that it lives on.
Sure.
And so in the folk scene, like when I was playing festivals and stuff, there's a big part of it where the artists are going to be also doing workshops. They're going to be doing little master classes, and so I started doing those workshops, and I started doing retreats and then master classes, and started doing a bunch of teaching, and I really really fell in love with it. Really loved it. Got to understand my art more through teaching. I think because you have to explain what you're doing to other people, and so
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
you get to
interesting.
really
Yeah.
know what you're doing. Yeah, and so, but I never thought of having an actual job. you know, but I feel like I've come out of retirement, and here I am. The pandemic hit,
Yeah.
and I had been kind of moonlighting around here a little bit. Uh, you know, I got to know this place. We first came here. I first learned about this place in my early 20s. We opened for Greg Brown, who's one of my heroes at Corson Auditorium, where May and I are playing. And man, that was back in I don't know 2002 or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like walking down the main drag here. This is right out this window, um, and I was just hearing. It was during summer camp, and there was this music pouring out of all these different
Yeah.
buildings, and I was like, "What the hell is this place?" And because I had never heard about it growing up in Detroit, and so I kind of just was interested in it, and we came up here, and I got more interested in it, and so I started getting to know Courtney Kaiser Sandler, who's my boss in the kind of she makes the wheels turn here in the contemporary music program. And I started teaching a little bit adjunct, and then pandemic hit, and all my gigs went away, and my booking agent was like, "You better find me a gig," and this gig just kind of came through. It was like his, it was like just happened, and full-time job opened up eventually, and so I've been, this is my, I think my fourth year full-time here, and I am now the director of the popular music program, and I also teach songwriting, and I work with these just unbelievable kids from all over the world, and the faculty here is amazing, and I feel real grateful. It's like a dream job, and unbelievable. Yeah,
It's so funny
it's
your
awesome.
description of kind of your first experience at Interlochen and not really knowing
Yeah.
about it growing up in Detroit, because myself having grown up in the Detroit area, I felt the same way. I always heard of Interlochen, I knew what it was, but my first experience was going. I went to a Ray LaMontagne concert
Oh, awesome.
in the summertime, camped there,
Yeah.
and same thing. Walked through there, and there was music coming from this building. I was kind of
Yep.
had the same reaction, like, "What is this place?"
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think so many people that live in the state know of it, but I don't think they necessarily know
Yeah.
kind of the depth of what it is. Like you said, these students from really all over the world. Um,
Unbelievable.
and so I guess my question to you, you touched on your title, director of popular music, which is which is a pretty cool title, but working with those younger kids, I mean, has that re-energized you? I mean,
Oh yeah.
it seems like that younger generation is coming up. Um, I just had a few weeks ago. I had the opportunity to be down at Belmont University in Nashville and
Yeah.
saw their student showcase. That was the end of the year
Yeah.
student showcase, and the talent of these young kids absolutely blew my mind.
Probably some of
So
our kids from here
so
are
the
there.
the,
Yeah.
the talent, there's no shortage of talent, but they're growing up in such a different time in terms of the music industry. And is that
Yes.
compared to what you grew up with? Is there kind of this back and forth of trying to help them, but it's such a different time in the industry?
It's a totally different time, and so we do have some music business classes and stuff like that that deal more with the and we try to mentor them about the current state of the music industry and what's going on and how to do that. But really, I see my job more as you know in this stage they should be developing their art. I don't think that they should necessarily be looking to go viral. They shouldn't be like it's like the whole point here is um, to build their creative voice and to make them. It's all about creating that artist within them and
Absolutely.
fostering that, and obviously not coloring with my own voice, and just leading them in that way, so that they are solid in their actual art. The rest of the stuff is a clown show. It's like
Yeah.
who the hell knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions, and we try to also plug into. We do a lot of we have visiting artists that are in the industry. We zoom in people from different management companies and publicity companies and record labels and all that stuff. So they get a sense of what's really going on. We've got a couple of kids that are viral sensations here, and that kind of stuff too. And yeah, it's a wild world. It's
Sure.
very different,
Yeah.
like you said. I mean, we did a grassroots gig to gig. Made CDs and sold them at the gigs, and built from the inside out.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of stuff happens now from the outside in.
Absolutely.
It's a totally different world. And so yeah, just really working on honing the craft, working on figuring out who you are artistically, and that's the game.
Yeah, and I saw recently too, very, very cool that even for some of your shows, you've taken some of the Interlochen students out to open for you a few
Oh
times.
man, so fun.
Yes.
Yeah, so fun. Yeah, we do tours, and so yeah, I take the past 2 years I've taken student trios. We'll put together a trio of
Yeah.
kids, and I'll take them with me. We went to Chicago and Wisconsin and a couple gigs in Michigan here, and just to experience being on the road, and
That's a big
to
part of
make
it.
connections for them. It's so fun. I mean, it's fun to see it through their eyes, and it's fun to see this art through their eyes as well. And not just the songwriting students, the pop and music students. I mean, we've got going to see the theater shows, going to see
For
the
sure.
art openings, all this stuff. I mean, it's wild. The passion, the catharsis, um, just the massive ups and downs that these kids are going through. And the way that it shows up in their art. It's really cool to be a part of that.
And does that, teaching now, does that also take some of the pressure off you as an artist now? Because I mean, obviously it takes up so much of your time, but it takes a little bit less of the pressure off uh, on you as an artist.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's taken me from having to really commoditize my own
Yeah,
stuff. Now I just kind of play gigs when I wanna,
sure.
and I play the gigs that I really want to play, and it makes me really grateful when I do get to play them, because I'm not out there on the road spinning my wheels a ton. I never really liked touring that much, hard touring, and so now I'm still traveling around, but it's like I'll do a weekend a month, and that's good for me. But I'm only taking those gigs that I really want to play, and so yeah, so I'm happy for that as well.
Well, hard to believe 20 minutes goes by like this. I feel like
Yeah, man. Yeah,
I feel like you and I could go on for an hour because I have so much I would
totally.
love to keep talking about, but want to be respectful of your time. But I do want to plug. Obviously, you are coming to 20 Front Street next Friday,
Yes.
May 30th at 8 p.m. in downtown Lake Orion. Tickets are still available on our website at 20frontstreet.com. So go grab those before you're gone.
Yeah, I want
I
to say I'm coming with an incredible violin player, Brad
Yep.
Phillips. He's a beast, total beast, and it's a really cool show. Just the two of us. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was gonna be I was gonna say, what can people
Oh yeah,
expect? I was gonna say, what can people expect on
totally.
May 30th? So
That's it.
there was the plug for the show. So,
Yeah,
and then I always end the podcast with the same question I asked everyone, all my guests. I
sure.
end with the same question, and that it's pretty simple. Just is, who are you listening to right now? Who's inspiring you? Maybe someone you've seen live. Maybe someone that you're listening to right now. Just kind of
Yeah. I'll tell you, a couple people. We'll keep it in Michigan.
perfect.
Laurel Primo.
Okay.
Laurel Primo is is a wizard. She's a total wizard. She's a fiddle player and a guitar player and a historian, and she's got a couple of really great albums out. May Early Wine's new album is phenomenal.
Yep.
Animal is excellent. And my students, actually, I've got a bunch of students that are releasing new stuff out there. There's a ton of good stuff through the school that's coming. These kids are like just killing right now. So
My thought is I always ask that question. I always tell my guests that question. I always put in it's pretty selfish because I just want to hear what people are listening to and see if there's anything
yeah,
I'm missing. I want to know. But now hearing you talk, I feel like you have a little bit of an unfair advantage in the position you're in because you're around a lot of very inspiring students and cool
oh
music.
man,
So
dude, the future of music is in good hands. I'm
I
telling you.
agree.
I was always worried about it, and I'm telling you, there is some amazing stuff coming down the pipeline.
I agree. And that's a great note to close it on. Joshua, thanks so much for taking the time to do this again. I know this is a busy week up at Interlochen, so even taking
It's all right,
the
man.
time, I appreciate it. And we're looking very forward to seeing you next Friday again, May 30th at 20 Front Street. Safe travels, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right.